Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we work together to squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Fort, and we are here for another episode of Dancing with Emily Dickinson. I'm not sure what to call this series, but I'd like to take looks at Emily Dickinson poems time and again on this channel, and do that in a little bit less formal of a fashion than most of the episodes of Strip Cover Lit. And this episode will be on what is the very first poem to appear within the complete poems of Emily Dickinson. This is a poem that I have only read, to my recollection anyway, within the last 10 months. I don't think I'd ever read this poem before then. And a big part of that is it simply doesn't look like an Emily Dickinson poem, and once I did read it, it troubled me for what might be less than obvious reasons, and I think that I now have the framing in which to put those emotions and the words to express them. So the poem goes as such, and this is, like I say, a little bit of a longer one, so it will take a bit of time to read, so bear with me here. 1. Valentine Week 1850. Awake, ye muses nine, sing me a strain divine, unwind the solemn twine, and tie my valentine. O earth was made for lovers, for damsel and hopeless swain, for sighing and gentle whispering, for unity made of twain. All things do go according, in earth or sea or air. God had made nothing single but thee in his world so fair. The bride and then the bridegroom, the two and then the one. Adam and Eve his consort, the moon and then the sun. The life doth prove the precept, who obey shall happy be. Who will not serve the sovereign, be hanged on fatal tree. The high do seek the lowly, and great do seek the small. None cannot find who seeketh on this terrestrial ball. The bee doth court the flower his suit receives, and they make merry wedding, whose guests are 100 leaves. The wind doth woo the branches they are one, and the father fond demandeth the maiden for his son. The storm doth walk the seashore humming a mournful tune, the wave with eye so pensive looketh to see the moon. Their spirits meet together, they make them solemn vows, no more he singeth mournful, her sadness she doth lose. The worm doth woo the mortal, death claims a living bride. Night unto day is married, morn unto eventide. Earth is a merry damsel, and heaven a knight so true. And earth is quite coquettish, and beseemeth in vain to sue. Now to the application, to the reading of this roll, to bringing thee to justice and marshalling thy soul. Thou art a human solo, a being cold and lone, wilt have no kind companion, thou reapest what thou hast sown. Wilt have no kind hast never silent hours and minutes all too long, and a deal of sad reflection and wailing instead of song. There's Sarah and Eliza and Emmeline so fair, and Harriet and Susan, and she with curling hair. Thine eyes are sadly blinded, but yet thou mayest see 6 true and comely maidens sitting upon the tree. Approach that thee with caution, then up so boldly climb, and seize the one thou lovest, nor care for space or time. Then bear her to the greenwood, and build for her a bower, and give her what she asketh, jewel or bird or flower. And bring the fife and trumpet, and beat upon the drum, and bid the world good morrow, and go to glory home. Emily Dickinson is a poet that straddled the Romantic era and the Realist era. And for illustration of that, if any is needed, this poem that was just read was written in Valentine Week of 1850. Listen now to one of her last poems, this poem being the penultimate poem in this collection. To happy time dissolves itself, and leaves no remnant by, 'Tis anguish not a feather hath, or too much weight to fly. Now between the two, how much less is in that latter poem? Mainly we have images, and hope seems to be replaced by assessment. This seems to be the way much of her later poems go. We see a fading away from the romantic ideas, and though we still have romantic terms, they are much less hopeful in their presentation. How does this fate befall a poet whose presumed first line of verse does read as this: "Oh, the earth was made for lovers, for damsel and hopeless swain." Perhaps literary analysis steeped in some biography will bring us closer to an answer. The biography first, then. This from Wikipedia, because after all, I do fall ever so briefly within those brackets of a millennial, and I will use some of that to my advantage. Dickinson, although part of a prominent family with strong ties to its community, lived much of her life in reclusive isolation, and redundancy apparently. Considered an eccentric by her locals, she developed a noted penchant for wearing white clothing, and became known for her reluctance to greet guests, or, later in life, even to leave her bedroom. Dickinson never married, and most friendships between her and others depended entirely upon a correspondence, that being written letters. Emily Dickinson died in 1886. And this bit, semi-biographical, if you want to call numbers biographical, from her completed works. In 1862, she wrote 366 poems. 1863 saw 140 pieces, and 1864 hosted 172. Besides those years, she maintained an output of approximately 1 to 2 poems per week between 1858 and 1865. These dates being, of course, approximations due to the poet's nature. So let's get back to the piece in question. These two excerpts are fragments that I think are worthy of looking at for an answer. "Oh, the earth was made for lovers, for damsels and hopeless swain, for sighing and gentle whispering, and unity made of twain. All things do go according, in earth or sea or air. God had made nothing single but thee in his world so fair. The bride and then the bridegroom, the two and then the one. Adam and Eve his consort, the moon and then the sun. The life doth prove the precept, who obey shall happy be, who will not serve the sovereign be hanged on fatal tree." And then later in the poem, "Thou art a human solo, a being cold and lone, wilt have no kind companion, thou reapst what thou hast sown, hast never silent hours and minutes all too long, and a deal of sad reflection, of wailing instead of song." Somewhere between these quotes and our penultimate poem, Emily tarries towards realist poetry. She also had a few years of writing in the prolific category, right? 366 poems in a single year obviously is more than one a day. It was not a leap year, I checked. Is it possible that she substituted work for a lover, imagining that in the absence of one, the other would suffice? Did she perhaps sacrifice one for the other too long and lose the necessary skills of socialization, and in recognition of this malady, lose her zest for the other? After all, there is a massive drop-off in her productivity between 1864 and her death in 1886. The last 3 years of her life seeing no poetry at all, unless I have missed them. Or is the most damning thing about art the fact that we are bound to project ourselves onto it? I'd love to hear what you think in the comments section below. Or perhaps if you are a content creator or response video, I would love to get more discussion going about poetry and specifically, selfishly, more discussion about Emily Dickinson. What Emily Dickinson poems would you like to hear about next?